Hi everyone, so in my last tutorial I showed you how to set grommets using this setter right here. However, I know a lot of you don't have setters, so I'm going to show you two alternate methods for setting your grommets. One is using the plier technique here, and the other method is the hammer and anvil technique, which is probably the most common technique. So what you're going to need to set your grommets is some way to make a hole. Some people like to use punches, other people like to use awls. If you don't have an awl, you can use anything pointy in your house, like chopsticks, knitting needles, ice picks, anything like that. Some way to stretch the hole in your fabric. Fray stop is optional, but I always like to use it just to be safe. Obviously, you're going to need some two-part grommets here, either 00 or 0, basically which one you prefer, and also some scrap fabric to practice on. Now, when you're using scrap fabric, you want it to be approximately the same type of fabric that you're going to be actually setting into your corset. So I suggest, using some scrap couture or twill or whatever you're going to be using on your corset, and also approximately the same thickness, so the same number of layers. And here are two different types of awls. So in my left hand here, this is a scratch awl that I got from Home Depot, and here is a tailor's awl. So you can see this one is actually meant for woodworking or other like home projects, and this one is actually made for sewing. So you can see the difference of the shape here. However, both are suitable. If you don't have a fabric store near you, then this will do. So here's my scrap fabric folded over a couple times. I'm just going to make a hole in there. Keep twisting, 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 trying to not break the threads, but just spread them apart a little bit until you get a hole approximately the size of the neck of your grommet. Now, some people find it a little bit frustrating to put the grommet into the hole because as soon as they take the awl out, the hole kind of shrinks back on itself again, and it can be a little bit difficult to push the neck through. So I'm just going to show you one tip here. You can put the awl through the hole to keep it open, then put the grommet right onto the awl here, and as you move the fabric off, just tuck the grommet into the hole, and there you go. Really easy. And now I'm just putting a little bit of fray stop around the hole here, just to make sure that the threads don't fray around the grommet, so that helps the grommet stay in a little bit better. Wait for it to dry so that your dyes and your grommet doesn't get all sticky. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your washer and you're going to put it on top of the hole like that. So washer on this side, and the top hat part of the grommet is on that side. So the first method I'm going to show you is the plier technique. Now, some pliers come with interchangeable dies, some don't. If you only plan on using one size of grommets, then you don't really need interchangeable dies. However, be sure that you know which one you're getting before you actually purchase it. Also be aware that the dies, they're not the same on both sides. So there is a directionality, so you can't just take the top of the grommet and set it either on this side or on this side. So if you can see here, this one looks like the inverted shape of a donut, and so the top of the grommet actually rests very nicely into that groove right there, whereas on this side you can see that there's a little bit of a lump. Let me turn it around here so you can see it in the light. There's actually a little bit of a lump there, and what that allows the grommet to do is when you press down, that's going to make the neck of the grommet gently curl and splay outward so that it wraps around the back of the washer. And now you're going to take your pliers, and you want the die that looks like that to hold the top part of the grommet like that. And then make sure everything is centered, that the little lump is within the neck of the grommet, and then you're just going to squeeze. And I really, really hate using pliers because they hurt my hands. Alright, and here is the grommet. It's set, and it's not as set as nicely as it could be. See, I can fit a fingernail underneath there. And the pliers that I have, they tend to split the grommets more than roll them. So this is obviously not a very good set of pliers. I got this at the dollar store. So obviously, if you want to set your grommets by pliers, you want to buy a good quality one. And the next technique I'm going to show you is using this setter, which you have to use with a hammer. So right here, once again, you have your dies, and this can open and close like that. And once again, the dies are specific to the part of the grommet. So the top part of the grommet is going to set into this part right there, like so. And then you're going to put the fabric on and the washer over top of that. And then this part, you can see the little lump here is what holds the neck in place as you're hammering it down. And then the smaller little groove right there is going to guide the neck of the grommet to curl nicely around the washer. And when you're choosing a hammer, I always like to use a rubber mallet, because the mallet, it's hard enough that it, provides enough force to actually set the grommet, but it's also soft enough that it disperses the force around the entire grommet, so it sets the grommet nicely and evenly. If you're using a metal hammer, then it has a very concentrated force on a small surface area, and that runs the risk of setting your grommet unevenly, but also because the dies are made out of metal and so is your hammer, then you run the risk of damaging your dies. Now, my rubber mallet costs $2 at the dollar store, so it's not a huge investment, but if you can't find a rubber mallet in your area, you really can't afford to buy one, then you can wrap your hammer in a piece of cloth or vinyl or an old leather belt, and that will at least help dull the force a little bit. So here is the grommet when it's set. So here's the washer side, and you can see that the neck has curled nicely around it. And here is the top hat side of it. So people have different hammering techniques. What I like to do is use a little bit less force and more taps with the hammer, as opposed to, really thwacking it once or twice. When I use a little bit lighter force and tap it more times, then I find that this top hat part of it, it doesn't get warped or damaged as much, and also this curls a lot nicer and more evenly instead of splitting. Alright, so I just showed you 3 different methods for setting grommets into your corset. Now, everybody will have their own preference, so if you can, try a couple of these out before you invest in any one of these. In my humble opinion, I like the setter the best because it's quiet, it gives me fairly good control, and it also saves my hands from undue stress and injury. My next favorite is the hammer technique, and it gives me the most reproducible results and really sturdy grommets. However, I do find that my wrists get tired when I'm setting an entire corset at a time because of the vibrations from hitting the anvil with a hammer so much, and it's also very loud, so I can't do this at nighttime. And also in good weather, I will actually use this outside on the sidewalk, or in when it gets a little bit colder, then I'll use it in the basement where there is some cement on the ground so that it's not too loud. And this is obviously my least favorite. I don't find that it sets the grommets very well, and it also really hurts my hands. So this concludes my mini series on setting grommets, and if you have any questions, then please feel free to leave a comment below, and I will see you all in the next video.